Oh, shit. Let me do this. Critique 3 with Maria Catanazzi. Oh. Questions, yes.
Okay, ready?
That's our first topic of discussion.
The necessities of dialogue. So he says that Paulo Freire says that the necessities of dialogue are hope, faith, humility, love, and critical thinking.
I agree with critical thinking, just because you have to actually, I don't know, think about what you're going to talk about rather than just repeating what you were saying between someone, like critical thinking about your reality. I don't know hope though, because I thought of hope more as, I don't know, like your ideal goal. Like you need hope to obtain your ideal goal or to struggle.
I think you need that for dialogue though, because if you're doing dialogue, you have to have a reason to do dialogue. There has to be a purpose.
And that hope gives that purpose?
Yeah. And the dialogue is the medium to get to what you're going towards. So in order to have something to go towards, you need to have hope. Does that make sense?
Yeah, okay. That makes sense. But what about love? Where does that come into play?
You have to care about something. You can't just.
He says that love is a commitment to others, an act of courage, not fear, and must generate acts of freedom. So, in his concept of love is different than your concept of love.
Yeah.
When it comes to describing dialogue, well, like why love is needed for dialogue.
Yeah.
Like he says, if I do not love people, love life, or love the world, I cannot enter dialogue, because you can't accomplish any of those things. You can't act of courage without love.
Okay, to have dialogue, both people need to have this? Like, do you need to be talking with someone that has love, has hope, has humility, and then talk to someone else who has the exact same thing?
Yeah, because if both of these people don't have that, it's not dialogue. It's
just like pushing your ideas on someone, so then you become an oppressor.
Both of them have to be on the same level in order for dialogue to occur.
Yeah,
That's really hard.
Which is why I agreed a lot with humility.
Yeah.
Because if you have an equal playing field and no one thinks more greater than the other, then you could actually open with dialogue. It's almost like talking, like with a student from student. Our conversations with student to student is completely different than from a student to professor or something like that.
Right. Well, so is this like the next stage in the oppressed coming together, like expressing their same ideas? Because I think dialogue could occur between an oppressor, and the oppressed, but I don't think it could go between the oppressor having dialogue with the oppressed.
I think it can if the oppressor gets down,
But he's no longer an oppressor, and then he's a peer.
No. Technically, he would be an oppressor.
Yeah.
Because he still has all the oppressor qualities, I guess you could say.
But if he's coming down to humility, then there's no more. Like, if you're bring yourself down to the level and you're seeing eye to eye per se, then you're not the oppressor anymore.
Even if you're the oppressor, you could say that. You could say that. Okay, how are we going to talk about this and how are we going to fix things? But in order for him or her to say that, he or she has to have all these qualities.
I get that, but I think if you have all these qualities, you're taking away a lot of your oppressor qualities.
But you're taking away a lot, but you could still be the oppressor. Like it takes a lot for a person to step down and say, okay, I was wrong. Let's see how we can fix this.
Yeah, and once you do that, you're no longer the oppressor. So all I'm saying is this dialogue is the next progression, because this book talks about the oppressor, and then it talks about banking of education, and it talks about the steps, and this is a next step to bring.
Banking of education, I don't think is a step. I think he's just it's a concept.
I think
it's a concept that he disagrees with.
I think it's a concept that can contribute to oppression.
Yes, it's a yeah.
I know, but it's a step that people need to overcome to not be oppressed.
I think it's more of a concept instead of a step. Like it's a contributing factor.
It's a concept within the step, I guess you could say. It's not.
But do you get what I'm saying? Like I'm trying to play in how I understand how dialogue comes into effect. I just don't I feel like dialogue should be more on the end of the oppressed people coming together and critically thinking about what their position is in society. Like I don't see dialogue happening between the oppressed and the oppressor.
would there be a need for? Well, I guess there.
Because
Put it this way.
you can't overcome the oppressor. Like it says somewhere in there, you need a group of people. Like you can't do this alone.
It's a group of people with.
So all I'm saying is I feel like dialogue is more between the oppressors dialoguing between themselves or the oppressed dialoguing between themselves. I don't think it can be oppressor
But
talking with
technically, the
oppressed.
oppressors wouldn't be having any form of dialogue, would they?
Yeah, but the government has forms of dialogue
But
between
is
each other.
but is it true dialogue? Does it come from hope, faith, humility, love, and critical thinking?
No, I guess not. Because
So then, would dialogue not exist among the oppressors?
Well, see, what I'm thinking is this is making me question how effective dialogue could be. Because if dialogue only occurs between the oppressed and the oppressors and the oppressors, then how are they going to communicate between the two? How are the oppressed going to communicate to the oppressors? So like what purpose would dialogue serve? I mean, yeah, we could talk about ideas and stuff like that, but what help would that do?
I think it helps bring people together and get everyone that are all the oppressed on the same page. I think there can be dialogue, I guess, between the oppressor and the oppressed, but I don't know if the oppressor is really becoming an oppressed, is still an oppressor.
I think the problem here is we're looking at dialogue as words again. We're not looking at it as all these qualities, because hope, he says, it's like it requires action. Hope isn't just standing there waiting for something to happen.
Right.
You make it happen. And I think we're talking about dialogue again as in just words, people coming together and talking.
Mm-hmm.
But it's that, and love has to have actions that, it's, what did he say?
And I get that, but if the oppressor has all those, if the oppressor has hope for action and stuff like that, then are they still an oppressor?
See, I don't agree. I don't think that they are. I think
they're coming down. So then that brings us back to your point. What good is dialogue?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think for a group of people to engage in dialogue, I think they need to be careful with just with becoming verbalistic to where they're just talking about it and they're not really doing anything about it. I think that's a great risk. And going back to the qualities of dialogue, I think that those are necessary not only to have dialogue but also to act on the words that are occurring through dialogue. So like if they have love or if they have hope or something like that, then they have bravery, right?
Right.
So and it takes a lot of bravery to turn your words into actions. So I mean maybe haphazardly he discovered this or maybe he actually thought this through, but I think that it's a good concept to have.
I agree. I like the point that you brought up. I don't know how effective it would be between the oppressor and the oppressed.
But see, I think that once you reach this form of dialogue, you're no longer the oppressor. So it's just
you have to make a transition. Is this kind of like the final transition stage?
Okay, see now I can see where you're pointing
like that's where like my stages are coming in. Is it the final transition stage, and then after dialogue, that's when all the action occurs?
No, dialogue is.
It's part of action, but so is dialogue the final stage and no longer being the oppressed and the oppressor? It's bringing two people to the same level.
I don't know. Let's look at the next chapter.
I don't know.
I mean, I can see where you're coming from on that, but.
Because that's what I thought of. Like, I thought of dialogue as kind of like a final, I guess, transition stage.
To where there is no longer oppression.
Right.
Through dialogue. I think dialogue is the step you take to begin.
I'm gonna say to me, it's like the first step, not the last step.
But if it includes action, then what's after action?
You know, maintenance.
Yeah.
Making sure you don't relapse.
It sounds like a drug addict.
Sorry.
Well, that's what oppression is.
You're right.
No, I can see where you're coming from on that, because like the dialogue between people who are cooperating with each other and beginning this action, and then you further the action to like, I guess, I don't want to say spread the word, because then again you would say it would be like propaganda, and propaganda is one of the things in oppression, right?
Yeah, that's not dialogue, because they refer to
So I don't know what the next step would be. I don't know if dialogue is the only step.
I mean, maintenance makes sense, but do you think he really included that in the book?
I don't know.
Well, we continued.
Right, chapter 4. Here we come.
Time out. Did anyone see what time we started?
No, I thought about that. I thought about that, but I have no idea.